there's a lot of waterfalls, natural arches, scenic lookouts through this area, all through the Daniel Boone National Forest. And, our first couple of years of hiking, we weren't looking for any evidence of Sasquatch or anything along those lines. I mean, when I'm in my mid-50s and, as a younger person, I think it was in the late 70s or early 80s, there was a show called Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock from Star Trek. He had a show called In Search Of, and that was my first exposure to the Patterson-Gimlin film. And, as a child at that age, I thought, wow, that's fascinating, but I had no clue that, or any other information of Sasquatch and in particular their range. But like I was saying, the first couple of years, we weren't looking for anything. Now, we had weird things happen from time to time when we'd be off trail. We would hear, I always wrote it off as somebody clicking rocks. We'd hear tree knocks. And it seemed to be more prevalent, the weird noises in the winter. We always went out whenever we could if there was a snow on the ground just for tracks to see what we could see. And on rare occasion, we've heard a couple of vocalizations, and I had no idea who it was. There's nothing I'd ever heard of or heard before. But everything changed in 2019. We were in London, Kentucky, Laurel County in the National Forest. And I think it was like January or February of 2019. And we were off trail again. And we were on the Rockcastle River. And on the opposite side of the Rockcastle River, we seen a trackway where something had obviously come out of the forest. And the riverbank was sort of a mixture of mud and sand. And we seen some really big tracks there. And, I was sort of taken back by it. And we looked and sort of lined up where the trackway went, where it crossed the river. And then on the side of the river we were at, we seen a partial footprint where it came out. And we could see where leaves were disrupted and something went back in the forest. But that really, we found a few tracks prior to that, but I thought, well, maybe a hoaxer or something. But there, in my opinion, at that time, no human in their right mind was getting 40-degree water, probably 5-6 foot deep, and traverse across, a 45 foot section of the river. So that really, really opened my eyes to maybe these things are here. And that's not to mention another in that same area, probably 2 or 3, well, I think it was November prior to this January, February, we were in that same area. And we found 2 turtle shells in the fork of a tree. Now, the turtle shells, there was no bones, and I should say they're tortoise shells. The tortoise shells, there were no bones in the shell. I've found tortoise shells over the years in the water, on the land, and their bones stay in there like their leg bones, most generally. But these 2 tortoise shells were about probably 7.5 to 8 foot up in the air. From the ground to the first fork of this big tree. And, I really looked at that and who would do that? I mean, I don't even think a 7-foot person, anyone that's out there that tall can jump up and do, put 2 turtle shells or tortoise shells in there. But, that's when things really changed. And we were working hiking an area. I think it was late 20, it was spring of 2021. It was called the Rockcastle Narrows Trail. And all along this area of the Rockcastle River, the bank is very steep. It's almost, when you're on top of these ridge lines, it's probably anywhere from 30 to 50 foot vertical sheer rock cliff, and it just goes on for miles and miles. And on this Rockcastle Narrows Trail, you actually, the trail takes you to a point that you can navigate through that. It's very steep, very, hard to make through there, but that area is full of mud, and we found a barefoot print there, probably size 13 or 14, and looked no boot, it just like a human bare foot, but the toe area was wider, and then we found where a juvenile had been stepping in these same prints. So, we got to really thinking, and Sasquatches were traveling, we could see where it would jump on this Rock Castle Narrows Trail, go through this choke point. Once it traversed the choke point, it would go back into the woods. We could see an area sort of where they'd worn a path out. So later that fall in 2021, we decided we would do some night hikes in that area and see if we could see anything, because we've got a thermal imagery. So our first couple of weekends that we went out there, we didn't see anything. We would see squirrels and birds and, raccoons in the trees. That's about it. But the third weekend, it was actually October 1st, 2021, we had set up in this field, preceding this choke point. And we had the thermal on a tripod, and we didn't have a fire going. We were totally blacked out. And I'm guessing it probably got dark about 7:30, maybe a quarter moon. There was a little bit of light up there. But, we weren't, nothing could see us, and we were taking turns on the thermal and just scanning 360, looking for anything. And about 9:20, 9:30 that night, the same road that we had walked in on is when I seen it. This old logging road was about 12 foot wide, and as I panned over, I seen the Sasquatch. His left foot was landing in the center of that logging road. He had just run